The program, it's a beautiful Wednesday morning, basically. The 17th day of June 2026. Karibu sana. The katikati ya mwaka is actually gone. So we are literally media. And before you know it, we'll be talking about something else. If you know, you know. But yeah, so far we have to do this. I said here yesterday that France was going to beat Senegal, didn't I, Vivian?
Yes, you predicted a 2-1 win.
Wakamua kuongeza ile moja. Mbappe bana. That was.
I feel like that game, Senegal had so many chances.
They had.
But they didn't take those chances.
But it was a laid-back kind of, you know, derby. That's how Giverson would call it. But yes, it was. Because, you know, they're all French-speaking countries.
Yes.
So 3-1, not so bad. And I think from that game, Senegal learned something. So it was N'Golo Kante, what did you say, Mbappe against Senegal. That is now my final take. It was Mbappe versus Senegal.
Well, I was rooting for them, but well.
Yeah. Mpira udunda.
Mpira udunda.
All right. Karibu sana. Ray is back. She just tell us where she disappeared to.
It's been such a long time, Ray. Hey. Good morning.
Oh, so all of you missed me.
The glow is just...
You needed that rest, Ray.
Well, I'm back. So it's a glow. So ni hao. That's where I was. I was in the Republic of China. It is Beijing.
Ni hao, ma?
Yeah, ni hao.
Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, so I'm glad to be back. It was quite an experience. I think the Chinese Republic, or rather the Republic of China, is really working at opening its doors to, you know, various people through cultural experiences and such. And as much as, you know, them, even when you look at the system of governance and such, it's way different than what we have here. And I felt particularly challenged by one person who actually was speaking to the team as we were undertaking our training. And they questioned, if you have freedom under the democracy, why are you having governance problems?
When you had freedom
and democracy, why are you still having governance problems? And they said, you may have freedom, but can you fully feed your people? That was a challenge. That was a challenge because to them, you know, it's the Communist Party. Out of a population of 1.4 billion Chinese persons, or rather nationals, within the Republic of China, 96 million of them belong to the party. Yes. So it is a whole different ball game, so to speak, in China. And what also challenged me further, Victor, especially when you're talking about matters of politics, is that for the very first time in recent times under President Xi Jinping, that's when they have included someone who has taken social engineering as the top 7 leadership of the party. All the 7 leaders of the party in China are practicing, trained and practicing engineers. By profession. All of them.
I know what you're trying. I know where you're headed.
Yes.
I know where you're headed.
Yes. You know where I'm going, right?
Yeah.
So isn't it, we should be blaming ourselves as the electorate for electing people into office that are not qualified, nor are they ready to practice servant leadership. That's my take.
Wow.
Yes, we need to have
something
values.
to ponder on.
Yes.
For sure.
It starts with us.
Yeah.
It cannot be anyone else. No one is going to come and clean up for us or after us. It is us.
It is all on us and the leaders we get to have in power.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, very well. I think there is so much that we can also pick from China. They have been our biggest trading partners, and I hope you've brought us some good stuff.
Well, now I know if you want to do some supplies,
Yeah.
I know where to get them and how to get them. Let's just say it was a win-win. I not only learned, but also thought outside the box.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, when you talk about international relations, the G7 summit is happening in France, and it's actually culminating today. President William Ruto is among the world leaders attending, including Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom, and United States. And European Union as well were invited. So let's talk about what are some of the takeaways that the leaders will come from or will take home from France. That is what I want to talk about, the priorities for the leaders in France. What does it really mean for us as a country, Kenya being the only country invited to that global table? Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governors Watch, will be here. Amolo Simba, Advocate of the High Court, Governance Expert, as well as Advocate of the High Court, who is Frank Nyamari. The three gentlemen will be here at exactly 7. Let's talk about that for just 1 hour, and then we call it a wrap. Vivian.
And in addition to that, we will also be having the African Union Special Envoy for Women, Peace and Security. That is Her Excellency Ambassador Liberator Mula Mula. She'll be here so that we get to have a look or concentrate on peace and security in Africa and the role and participation of women in all of this. That's a conversation that will be coming to you at around 8:05 a.m. We'll also have another conversation with women. Remember, today is Tuesday, so it's women at the forefront, and that's exactly what we will be doing on the show today. So I'll have a conversation on safe spaces and strong communities. We get to have a deep dive into actionable solutions, especially when it comes to gender-based violence. And I'll have with me a gender-based violence activist. Her name is Hawa Asania Umar. And then we'll also have an author and lecturer. That her name is Nancy Odero. My name is Vivian Degwa. Welcome to the show. Ray?
Thank you very much, Vivian and Victor, to just bring us up to speed in what is going to be happening in the next 2 hours and a half. To just invite those who are watching from home, get us on our various socials, tell us what you think about, especially the G7, and what it means for Kenya to be in such a global platform, given that the president is going to be, or rather is representing the rest of Africa. So much has been said, and I'll be keen to hear from your panel, Victor, what they think exactly about Africa's outlook in the eyes of Kenya, or other, how the West looks as Africa. Is it the time we change the tide other than being the source and become an equal trading partner? I'll be waiting to hear that particular conversation because a lot has been said. And we start off on that note, just in case you do not know, I am Regina Manyara. You can get me on my socials at Ray Manyara. Now, President William Ruto has called for the inclusion of Africa in reforming the international financial and governance institutions. The head of state, who spoke ahead of the G7 summit in France, pointed out that the institutions need to be democratized, and including the United Nations Security Council, the International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank for the benefit of all nations.
The president, who is accompanied by First Lady Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, including the economy, international trade, security and artificial intelligence.
Whether it is energy transition, whether it is food security, whether it is labor mobility, or whether it is building a bigger market, Africa will have a say. Artificial intelligence, Africa is not going to be merely a consumer. That Africa is going to write the rules and is going to be co-creators on how artificial intelligence drives the next industrial and global revolution.
The head of state named the summit as consequential and significant meeting for Africa, building on the 2023 Africa Climate Summit.
Discuss and consolidate our position, ideas and suggestions on how climate change and the effects of it were affecting not just us, and Africa did not need to continue just being a victim, but a significant contributor to how a solution could be found.
President Ruto is expected to use the G7 summit platform to push for reforms for the global financial systems.
This is no longer going to be a relationship about dependency. is going to be a relationship about sovereign equality. It is not going to be a relationship about aid, charity, assistance. It's going to be a relationship that we want about mutually beneficial partnerships.
The head of state has been invited by French President Emmanuel Macron, who is assuming the presidency of the Summit of the World's 7 Advanced Economies and Democracies, to participate in the high-level meeting. Isufar reporting for Good Morning Kenya.
Well, the G7 meeting culminates today, so we'll be keen to hear what outcomes come from this particular meeting at a time when there's been a lot of criticism, especially in how the West is handling Africa for years, being a source of raw materials to furnish industries within the West. Is it the high time that Africa became an equal trading bloc? On that particular panel, this and so much more, I'm sure, is going to be coming out of that particular summit, and we're going to continue keeping tabs on that. Now to matters women and leadership. A section of women leaders have sustained its support for President William Ruto's re-election, saying that he has performed better than his predecessors in his first term in office. Led by Kirinyaga Governor Anne Maigoro, the leaders who spoke in Taita Taveta County during a women's empowerment event said Ruto's development track record speaks for itself.
Anafanya kwa usawa, sio upande moja tu akiwacha upande ule mwingine. Mimi nataka tuelewane. Najua kuna fununu nyingi, watu wanaongea, lakini kabla hujasikia Waiguru wameongea, kule mlima hawa watu hawajaongea.
For the first time tuna kiongozi mwenye amesema maendeleo iende katika kila kona ya this country of Kenya.
Mukae ndani ya serikali ndio Taveta iweze kuendeleshwa na ikue na mambo mingi.
Tunasema tutafute hii power sote, tupeleke Ruto pale, arudi aingie 2027.
Na sasa ameongeza nguvu mpya, ari mpya, broad based government. Sisi wana ODM.
Now, away from matters politics, is that Public Health Principal Secretary Mary Muthoni has urged Parliament to expedite the tobacco control bill that will regulate emerging nicotine products. Now, appearing before the National Assembly Health Committee, PS Muthoni said the current Tobacco Control Act does not adequately cover the novel emerging tobacco, including shisha, vape and nicotine pouches. In the new legislation, the government also seeks to regulate the digital advertising of tobacco products.
And based on the ministry's current assessment, we are talking about the curing of the novel products loophole. Originally, the 2007 Act does not adequately cover the modern traditional products, and the amendment expands the legal definition and scope of the law to bring nicotine pouches. It will bring electronic nicotine delivery systems and the heated tobacco products under strict regulatory control, which never used to be there. Secondly, the issue of digital marketing blind spots. The traditional laws only banned tobacco advertising in traditional media. The bill incorporates the findings of recent tobacco monitoring research to establish legal boundaries for online sales, digital marketing, and social media influencer promotions. Because initially we only capitalized on the traditional media, the newspaper and the radio.
Now to the courts. The High Court has ordered parties in the case over the disputed Kenya-USA Ebola quarantine facility in Laikipia Air Base to appear physically in court
on Thursday for oral submissions. This is after the petitioners Katiba Institute and Law Society of Kenya informed the court that the state was in contempt. Justice Patricia Nyaundi was informed that construction works to set up the facility are still ongoing despite the court's directive prohibiting the establishment of the facility pending the hearing and determination of the case. Details of this in our Scales of Justice segment.
After Katiba Institute and the Law Society of Kenya moved to court under a certificate of urgency to suspend the setup of a quarantine facility in Laikipia Airbase on May 28th, Judge Patricia Nyaundi issued temporary orders stopping the deal until a case filed by the petitioners is heard and determined. However, during the virtual hearing, the petitioners informed the judge that the Attorney General, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had disregarded the orders. The case is set for hearing on Thursday 18th June in an open court. Elsewhere, 3 suspects who are among those suspected of causing chaos at the All Saints Cathedral Church on Friday will be the guests of state for 10 working days. This is after the prosecution informed a Kibera court that the preliminary investigations through CCTV footage show them causing mayhem at the church.
Also, preliminary investigations indicate that the respondents are members of or associates of an organized criminal gang commonly known as Chini ya Mnazi, found at Mathare North.
Constable Kari Odhiambo stated that the probe is complex since they need to apprehend the remaining 197 suspects.
Considering the extensive and detailed investigations elaborated in the supporting affidavit of the IO and the submissions by the London Prosecution Council, the IO, the investigating officer, is granted 10 working days to conduct and conclude investigations as sought, with the respondents being detained at Kibera Police Station.
Bruce Mayoyo, Good Morning Kenya.
Now, since that's a developing security matter in regard to those sought to be apprehended under that particular case, we're going to be keeping tabs on that at a time when various stakeholders have already condemned the acts that were witnessed on Friday at the CBD there. Now, the Auditor General's report has revealed that 700 million shillings collected from health facilities in Homa Bay County is unaccounted for. This emerged during the Senate County Public Accounts Committee meeting chaired by Senator Moses Kajwang, in which Governor Gladys Wanga was hard pressed to explain the utilization of the county funds. The report also revealed that the county had spent almost 500,000 shillings to construct 2 pit latrines, sparking queries from the senators. Here's Abdiaziz Hashim with the details.
After failing to appear before the Senate County Public Accounts Committee for months over the 2024-2025 audit queries,
the Senate resolved to impose a fine of 500,000 shillings on the governor in her personal capacity.
Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga on Tuesday appeared before the Moses Kajwang-led committee after she was fined 500,000 shillings for snubbing initial summons by the committee.
So you confirm as the auditor that the facilities collected 1.6 billion.
Yes. The Auditor General established that 700 million shillings collected from health facilities in Homa Bay County cannot be accounted for.
The numbers are not tying. Auditor General, you are saying the county collected 1.6 billion towards health facilities improvement. And out of these, 915 million was transferred to special purpose account. What happens to the 700 million between the 1.6 and 915 million?
Now, Chairman, when we look now at the audit of the entities, when we go to the PIC, then we now compare with the facilities. What did you receive and what didn't you send?
The committee chaired by Moses Kajwang raised concerns over the variance, putting the Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga to task over the 43% deficit of the initial collection.
Because they should agree with the entity that it's 1.6 when we do the maths now.
So does it mean 700 million was spent?
Sometimes we even report, you report revenues on the basis of those claims in the hope that you will receive back the money.
Moreover, the committee expressed shock over the cost of constructing 2 pit latrines in the county, which was listed for about 500,000 shillings.
Chair, if the pending bill is 348,954 on a construction of a two-door pit latrine, what was the cost of this project, Honorable Chair? And does it make sense that latrines are that expensive to build in Homa Bay?
The standard amount for the two-door pit latrines is about 500,000 shillings. That's the cost of pitting it and building it.
Abdiaziz Hashim for Good Morning Kenya.
We'll continue looking at issues of governance. Now, to matters business, geopolitical tensions, particularly conflict in the Middle East, have emerged as the biggest threat to the growth of remittance inflows into Kenya. Central Bank of Kenya Research Director Professor Robert Mudida warns that Kenyans living in countries impacted by the conflict were already sending less money home, and remittance flows could decline further if the impasse drags on.
Kenyans living abroad remitted a record 650 billion shillings in 2025, according to a household survey released by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, underscoring the growing importance of diaspora inflows to the economy. However, Central Bank of Kenya officials warn that the growth in remittances could slow this year due to escalating conflict in the Middle East. The Middle East accounted for 104 billion shillings, or 12.4% of total remittance inflows, highlighting its significance as a source of foreign exchange.
A more extreme scenario, which if the war prolongs, let's say up to the end of the year, then you'll have a very, very difficult time. Our remittances, come from abroad, then you're talking about problematic economic prospects from many of those countries that were mentioned.
The survey confirms what many of us had long believed. Remittances are much more than financial transactions. They are investments in people, families, and community.
Speakers at the launch of the 2025 Remittances Household Survey Report have identified high transaction costs as a major barrier to remittance inflows, despite the funds remaining one of Kenya's leading sources of foreign currency earnings.
And sub-Saharan Africa is the most expensive region, where it is close to 9%. So 3 times the target. We're 3 times more expensive than the target that was set. It is hard to talk about the role of digital channels for remittances and not talk about how any of the changes in policy that increase its cost can affect senders and recipients.
North America is the largest source of funds, followed by Europe and the Middle East region.
The 16th of June 2026, we saw the finance bill actually go through its second reading. We'll be keeping tabs on the development of that piece of legislature. Now we cross over to matters sports, and when you talk about sports, we're focusing on the matches currently already played in the global showpiece that is the World Cup. Now let's just have a recap of France versus Senegal there, where France has carried the day in that particular heated match there, scoring 3 goals against a solitary goal from Senegal, sparking a lot of conversation on social media. We also have there was a game between Iran and New Zealand there that ended in a 2-2 draw. We are then looking further back. Also yesterday, we witnessed Saudi Arabia taking on Uruguay there, ending in a 1-1 draw in as far as that particular match is concerned. So earlier today, we had Iraq taking on Norway. Iraq scoring a solitary goal against Norway 4. We also, Argentina played in Group J against Algeria, with Argentina scoring 3 goals to Algeria's none. So today we're going to be keenly focused on Austria versus Jordan, as well as Portugal versus DRC, while England and Croatia are going to be scoring out in a late day match there at around 11, so to speak. So do continue keeping tabs on what is happening in as far as the World Cup is concerned. Remember, KBC is indeed your true sports partner. Now I want to hand you over to my colleague Victor, who is going to be discussing, among others, the G7 summit meeting that is currently underway in in France, where we have our President William Ruto there representing Africa. And the big question is, what is in for Africa at large? Is it time that we got an equal footing in as far as trade is concerned, and not just a source of raw materials for the West in as far as industry is concerned? This and so much more is going to be tackled. Be sure to scour our website, that is www.kbc.co.ke, for further details pertaining matters business, sports, and also what is happening regionally. I'm Regina Manyara. I hand it over to Victor Olo.
Watoto wa siku hizi wakiwa nasumbua. Usikose kuona Gundu KBC Channel 1 every Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. Ujionee hivi vituko vya watoto wa siku hizi wanaosumbua wazazi na mengine mengi. Keep it Gundu. Gina! Wananiita Gundu, wakita wengine
Sydney Lopez Cabral, and he overdid it. And he took a bit out of his opponent there. Llorente's down, and the card looks to be coming out here.
Yeah, his first touch was awful, and he just ball got away from it, and then he went chasing it and just left a little bit on Llorente, and probably rightly booked.
Perhaps there, Vinny, the first little suggestion that the discipline and the focus might start to wane, given the conditions, given the immensity of the occasion, given the quality of the opposition. Spain like to wear people out, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and that's what they're almost expecting. You know, use the word, you get bored, and what I mean by that is players at that level just think, oh, I'm comfortable. Someone will jump out, someone will think, oh, I can do.
Right. Okay, Ray, thank you so much, and welcome back. It's now 7 sharp. Good morning. Beautiful Wednesday morning. Today, being the viewpoint, let's take a look and fly across our borders all the way to France and take a look at what's happening. We started with the news bulletin where President William Ruto spoke quite candidly when it comes to matters G7 that is happening and actually culminating today in Evian in France. The G7 world leaders are meeting there. So I want us to take a look basically what it really means for us as a continent, Kenya as a nation, and globally. But there is one thing that is coming out of that, that summit is that the Strait of Hormuz, there is some sense of, they're reconsidering on how they can get a new pathway, all right, because of what has happened between around 3.5 months, how the world suffered. That is going to be our discussion today. The G7 Summit 2026, the priorities for the leaders in France and what they should be taking home. Frank Nyamari, who is an advocate of the High Court, is here after a very long time. Franco.
Yes.
Hey, Bana, how are you?
I apparently got impeached from this studio.
You've been reinstated.
I've been reinstated.
That decision was vacated long time ago. That's why.
Now I'm back.
You're back.
But ideally, I've been serving Mwananchi out there.
Very good.
Doing some matters and looking at how best we can build our country.
Yes.
And propelling the youth agenda as far as elections 2027 are concerned. And I'm glad that this morning I'm able to speak about those matters and also what is happening in France as far as the G7 summit is concerned. And we are glad to have President William Ruto there, speaking the voice of Africa and articulating issues that more so touch on the country.
Yes.
and are real to everyone.
Perfect.
So we look forward to the resolutions within that summit to see how best that the world can move forward. Yeah.
Perfect. Getting more into that. And Kevin Osido is Executive Director of the County Governors Watch, OGW. I get it right, OGW. Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
You're well?
Victor. I am very fine, nashukuru Mungu.
Yes.
It's a beautiful day, wonderful June 17th, 2026.
Yes.
A day that we will never see again. And I'm grateful for the invitation to come and share with our viewers and the continent and indeed the global community.
Yeah.
What Kenya's presence in the G7, a very closed space, very specific to certain countries. You know, when they say a group of 7, somebody told me it could as well mean the Great 7. and I thought that's
really the highest table globally.
Yeah, so grateful for this opportunity to come and just speak about what that means to us. And when we have these high-level conversations, what do they mean to the common citizen? How does it translate to vitu kwa ground? So thank you.
Very good background check there. Thank you so much. And Amolo Simba. Amolo is also an advocate of the High Court. He's also governor's expert. He's not new to Jerusalem. Good morning, Amolo.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Karibu.
Glad to be back here.
Right?
Yes, looking forward to the discussion.
Asante. Okay, let me start with the front page of the local dailies, gentlemen. House Ifuna team is complicating Kalonzo Rigathi 2027 poll lineup. That is a movement surge likely to increase its stakes in negotiation. I think this was long seen. The kind of journeys and campaigns they are making across the country, perhaps somebody can say that it's actually scaling up their point of and the stakes in negotiation. And yes, that story is on the front page and it continues page 6. You can take a look at that. I think this is something we've discussed here before, how that is going to happen. Ruto rallies for Africa's inclusion in global financial institutions. That has been his clarion call for a very long time, including some of the past summits that actually have been held here in the capital. He's been quite keen on financial autonomy when it comes to Africa, so that Africans should also have their own way of running their particular affairs. So there's here, on the front page, they are world leaders, and President William Ruto is the only African head of state there. That is what I have on the front page. On the Daily Nation, finance bill pressure. Lawmakers clash in-house over the proposed tax measures and the committee's recommendations. One of them is the legal action where the Consumers Federation of Kenya asks court to halt several provisions, citing likely higher consumer prices. And COFEC argues that new tax on food, health products and agricultural inputs will raise cost of living. And KRA also are seeking the powers. And lobby warns that a taxman could impose tax liabilities without prior notice to or make subjective assessments when it comes to that. And finally, they reckon that its hidden taxes on digital payment system will lead to more expensive transactions. That is on the consumer when it comes to the 2026-2027 finance bill. And former CJ Maraga pushes actually is now pushing for joint opposition flag bearer, close to almost the same as what's on the front page of the Star. But he spoke yesterday and he said that he's also putting pressure for a joint opposition flag bearer. Finally, on the front page of the Standard, apologize. Mr. President, there you go. Apologize, Mr. President. What does this photo remind you? 2024? I think this was the House Parliament invasion. And the Standard reports that can a government buy justice with compensation without avoiding accountability for the bloodshed that shocked a nation? As President William Ruto's administration moves to compensate victims of police brutality linked to the 2024 Gen Z protests, critics say that the process risks becoming little more than quote-unquote blood money if it is not accompanied by truth, apologies, and prosecutions. Paying victims while alleged perpetrators, the trigger-happy police officers and their commanders remain free, entrenches impunity. Nearly 2 years on, many still demand answers. Who gave the orders? Who pulled the trigger? And who will be held accountable? That is on the front page of the Standard. Okay, gentlemen, let's come back home and talk about what is happening. So, Amolo, the G7 summit is happening. Yeah, you can actually go ahead and take your favorite paper and read more details for yourself. Thank you very much. So, Amolo, the G7 is happening and actually is culminating today. There's so much, and when we listen to what President William Ruto said, perhaps the director can also play that briefly. We take a look. It turns out that we are making some good presence on the global arena. There's no doubt about that.
There's no doubt, yes. I think it's a good thing that the president attended the G7, the invitation for Kenya.
Yes.
Previously, there have been other African countries invited to the G7. Initially, there was South Africa that was supposed to attend this one. Then the invitation was rescinded because of the geopolitics.
Yeah.
And Kenya attending, I think it's a good thing. But for me, looking at it, the main impact would come from Africa. Africa being make a common front rather than individual countries being invited. There are those issues that of course the president has raised in terms of even when you look at the inclusion of Africa in the global financial infrastructure. Currently you get that many African countries face debt stress because the cost of borrowing for African countries is extremely high. Some borrowing as high as 15%, while the more developed countries borrowing as low as 1%. Yes. So I think that it's a good thing that we're invited, but real reforms will come when Africa approaches some of these summits from a united front rather than individual invitations. Yeah.
And why do you think it was only Kenya?
Of course, I think that it's all about the geopolitics and because currently the rapprochement between Kenya and France, we had the Kenya-France summit that was in the course of this year. So I think that because of the close relationship that probably Kenya is building with France, they found it fit to invite Kenya. And of course, initially South Africa had been invited, but currently, due to their diplomatic issues with the U.S., that could have contributed to the rescission of their invitation.
Yeah, Kevin, I mean, when you look at Kenya stepping into the global spotlight, it's one thing is quite common. The push for economic reset is quite open at the summit.
Oh, yeah, precisely. And thank you so much once again, Victor. If you look at the foundational principles of this kind of engagements, most of the group of 7 countries, talk about Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and US, have great investments in many countries or most countries in Africa. But if you went further to dig deeper into the kind of benefits that these African countries get, or the benefits that accrue, especially to the locals, many a times they are quite limited. And so the kind of conversations, therefore, that continue to happen seemingly do not favor Africans and African countries. And if you look at the kind of investments that these countries have in Africa, from energy to security to infrastructure, all the way to climate change, and even many, many other things, including financial investments. A lot of these, really, the people who more or less suffer the consequences, for instance, climate change, are Africans. With a continent of about 1.4 billion people, with an investment of, all these 7 countries put together, you, of course, Victor, expect that we are supposed to see benefits that really accrue and what the locals can therefore be able to touch and say, these are the beneficiaries, what we are benefiting from our engagements and interactions with these global or the G7 countries. But if you look at the kind of conversations that happen, the infrastructure that set up the foundational principles of these engagements, some people would say they are archaic, they are very old. I remember President William Ruto even making reference at some point, if I am clear, that most of the policies were made after World War II, and therefore the kind of context that Africa is engaging in right now is one that really do not generate the benefits that we expect to see, particularly around engaging with most of these countries. And that is why even at the Africa-France summit that was hosted here in Kenya, you realize that President William Ruto was really pushing for certain reforms, especially when it comes to financial inclusivity. Yeah. And this is largely because African leaders have a feeling that Africa is very underrepresented. There is no voting structure. They have a limited voting power. The decision-making is skewed to very small or very few countries. Yeah. You have the kind of influence also that Africa has is very, very limited. You move further, Victor, and of course, if you look at the kind of interactions that happen, this is such a closed space that you have to be invited. So regardless of the kind of governance structures that Africa could have, from Africa Union, you come even locally here and talk about the East African community, you move it further even to look at Africa Development Bank. Most of these countries still interact with local or regional African institutions. Yeah. And that is why, in my view, it is important, therefore, that Africa begins to have a voice. And invitations such as the one that President William Ruto has received, therefore, come to the fore to be able to begin to strengthen the kind of conversations that are therefore supposed to present the spaces of Africa. And I believe, I agree with Amolo, that Africans therefore must begin to treat their local businesses as serious business. Because if we do not affront a very strong African position, we will not be taken seriously. And this I take back to, for example, the Africa Climate Summit.
That was also raised at the last summit in Nairobi.
Yes. Yeah? If we have invitations and platforms where African leaders, like ACS in 2023, Africa Climate Summit, where we need to have a strong voice, and African leaders don't show up. Some of them consider those as small meetings. You know, you move it further to the summit we had early this year, and some African leaders don't show up. The question then that would be begging is, are we able to front a common voice? Are we able to speak together as a continent? And therefore, are our leaders able to really generate benefits that accrue from serious conversations like this? And Victor, as I finish, it is therefore important that even as we have this discussion on the G7, we also look at some of the outcomes from the Africa-France summit that Kenya hosted. Yes. So that when we move to, for example, global the G7 conversations, we are able to say, this is the kind of progress and traction that we have received based on the conversations, and so this is the position of Africa. So it is important, therefore, that African countries speak from a common voice, from a common front, and that when President William Ruto is speaking in France, he is not speaking when he's representing Africa in the G7, therefore he's not there by virtue of a Kenyan president. We need to see him as a continental leader who is speaking on behalf of several other African countries.
Frank, that perhaps, and I like the way they have opened it, because so it's not about Kenya. Yeah. It's about Africa to the world. Yes. Right? Yes. But that is not just something that President William Ruto or Kenya representing Africa in that global summit, that round table of the big great seven gentlemen. Let me use that word.
Now, first of all, we must appreciate what has been there before. That Africa has always been invited to listen, as Africa has always been invited to be just an attendant. But you see now, there is now an opportunity for Africa to speak its voice. Yeah. And I'm so happy, or rather I'm so excited to see that at long last we have a table. We can now sit amongst the great, if you call them that. We can now sit amongst the great and push the agenda that not only touches on Kenya, but also touches on across Africa. Now, Victor, we must look at the problems that Africa has faced. For example, the issues that are climatic in nature, Africa is always suffering. Not only Kenya, Africa as a continent is also always suffering. When the West is fighting, we are the ones who receive the repercussions of the war. We are the ones who receive the heat. We are the ones who are always affected. Yeah. So when President Ruto is on the table speaking, it's a good thing. But when he is leading that conversation, it's more significant as a people of Kenya and as Africa as a whole. And let us remember that in this G7 summit, South Africa has been invited to those summits before. But the issues that President William Ruto is articulating now, and I want to agree with my colleague here, those are issues that are touching on the African people as a generation currently. They are not issues that policies that were made after World War II would address. They are issues that can be addressed by a candid conversation. They are issues that can be addressed by realistic examples and looking at the way forward. So therefore, having President William Ruto on that table is a good thing. Him leading the conversation is significant. And finally, him presenting the agenda to the world and influencing the change that we so all require is something that is going to be of a great testament to the country and the continent at large.
Okay. Again, the geopolitical challenges that we are actually facing, because take a look at what's happening in South Africa. It's not something that we would be so happy to witness today, or perhaps Africa. South Africa is considered to be the New York of Africa, so to speak. But whatever is happening is affecting the face. Now, what do you think, this is to all of you, that is going to be a dynamic change, or what is going to change the paradigm shift on how Africa is going to be seen? Is Kenya taking the space of other African countries? That's number one. Number two, what do you think is running through the minds of other African heads of states, seeing Kenya representing them there at the G7? Amolo, what do you think is running through the minds of other African heads of states?
Okay, so first, what's happening in South Africa is quite unfortunate. Like where we are seeing the xenophobic attacks against fellow Africans. I think that Africa, we need to work towards free trade and free movement, because our strength lies in our unity. You look at the European Union, it's a strong trading partner, and the economy is strong because of the fact that the free movement and free trade, like the fact that the European Union as a group, in terms of that integration, that's what makes them strong. As long as African countries which each stand individually will never be strong, our negotiating powers, in terms of even how we portray our issues at the global stage, will remain being a challenge. So I think that what is happening in South Africa is a symptom of what's happening across Africa in terms of the competitions between countries rather than integration. Right now, President Ruto is there at the G7. I'm not sure whether is like where you asked whether what's going through African leaders, whether it's gone there to represent the African continent, like whether there is a common position that they've agreed on that is going to represent. Because the problem again now that we face as Africa is that divide and rule, whereby each leader is portraying the position of their country. My thinking, again, as I said, it would have been more effective if we had African representation, not just a specific leader being invited in their capacity, but rather going there as representation of Africa. We would have also had maybe having the AUC chair being invited there to represent an African position. Like, what is it that, is there an African resolution that has been agreed on that is going to be pushed at the G7? Because, like, we look at it in terms of resources. We have a lot of resources in terms of the population. We have a lot of bargaining power. But unless we front that as a united front, we have no leverage. So it is good for him, but my thinking that it would be more effective had he tried also to build, maybe even after the summit, trying to build consensus in terms of resolution by African states, taking a common front. Otherwise, some of these things will be nothing more than talk. We'll go have flowery discussions, but then after that, in terms of the implementation, and like there's always no free lunch. You have to fight for your space at the table, and Africa can only fight for its space at the table by going through a united front. And fronting in terms of integration.
You have to fight for your space at the table. But basically, I'm trying to imagine how Kenya loses that space already, because you have to squeeze yourself. You have to squeeze yourself, and once you become comfortable there, makes your voice heard. Basically, that also reminds me of the same question as I'm also asking you. What is running through the minds of other African sovereign states? We had the Kenya-France summit just the other day, Africa-France summit happening here, and we saw a number of heads of state coming here. But now Kenya, as an individual, being at that table, when you look at Narendra Modi, the President Donald Trump there, of course we'll talk about his body language as well during the photo session, which is quite keen to talk about. But what do you think is, do you think the President has a lot of weight on his shoulder while attending this summit?
Victor, my very straightforward answer to that question is that yes.
A heavy load.
He has an extreme load on his head. One, the President of the Republic of Kenya has to continuously enhance the space that he now has as a convening power. President William Ruto and Kenya has convened serious conversations. Africa Climate Summit is not a small thing, especially if you look at the kind of conversations that have to do with climate change, climate adaptation funds, poverty issues, food security, trade and investment opportunities in Africa. And then you move it further to the Kenya-France summit that we just had the other day, and you're talking about artificial intelligence and AI and digital innovation, technological development. These are conversations that are not small. They are things that the President has therefore to show that Kenya taking this lead role as a convening power means something not just to us as a country, but indeed as a continent. Number two to that is to be able to convince his fellow African leaders that we are not doing this, or I am not doing this just as a Kenyan leader, but it is all for us. Because remember that if you look at certain documents like Agenda 2063 of the AU, that document treats Africa as one state, one nation, one people. And that really has to be the rallying call. If you look at the infrastructural developments, and even locally here, we are talking about LAPSET that cuts all the way from Lamu to Ethiopia. These are not small conversations. And so President William Ruto is saying that I am coming in as somebody who has demonstrated. And you see when he invites leaders, for example, the France president, Emmanuel Macron, and he shows up. It's not a small thing. It shows that he has what it takes to be able to, more or less, as others would say, quote unquote, the blue-eyed boy of other people, of the big boys, And that really is something that other leaders must be able to appreciate, that President William Ruto is also being looked at as somebody that can be listened to. Number two, they have to look at Kenya as a voice for Africa. This country is the gateway of Africa.
Yes.
Kenya stands tall as a regional leader. So other African leaders must also be able, let me say should, without necessarily using the word must, now begin to see Kenya as a voice for Africa. That for the things that President William Ruto has been talking about, you talk about reforms of global financial institutions, you talk about fair climate financing, Victor, you talk about lower borrowing costs for African countries, you talk about global, greater representation of Africa in global decision making. These are conversations that go beyond Kenya. And President William Ruto is saying Kenya wants to be this voice that really can be listened to, can take up your issues, and therefore can be able to speak them out there. And that is why it is important, in my view, that even as Kenya is looked at as a diplomatic bridge, that other leaders also seize the competition, the imagination that maybe there are benefits that would accrue to them that Kenya probably is taking over. I do not think that that is the kind of imagination. It is neither the imagination nor is it the intention of President William Ruto insofar as he's going out there to be able to speak on behalf of people, of these African leaders. And fact of the matter, Victor, is that Kenya is also a regional leader. If you look at the transect between East and Central Africa, this country hosts the biggest refugees in other globes. Kenya has made certain strides Of course, without going into the controversial details around Kenya's security presence in Haiti, among others, we have made certain strides that can be able to show Kenya as a regional leader, as a bridge to be able to have other countries engage with Kenya. So in my view, therefore, President William Ruto has a heavy load laden on his back to be able to convince his peers that yes, this is what it is. And even as he engages at this global table, it is important that we also have trickle effects. So that when AU meets, the president is supposed to be given a very fair opportunity to share some of the lessons or what he has come back with from these kind of tables. It is important that AU takes up this kind of conversations as the Africa Union and other bilateral and multilateral institutions like ICGLR, the International Conference on the Great Lakes region that has about 12 to 14 countries. They must be able to also plug in to be able to show what exactly this kind of conversations mean. So that, Victor, we take this conversation from a global stage to a regional stage, to a national stage, and then we break the benefits to the common African citizens.
Okay. I want to take a break, but Frank,
yes,
we all know that this summit has got no legal authority to enhance some of the decisions that they make. Although they stand that benefit of the doubt, and they have that priority to actually challenge, because they have got the muscle to influence the global economic priorities and channels and all that. I'm just wondering if the G7 were to say that the Strait of Hormuz is active and open, what would be the reaction? Because we are seeing America has a voice, and they're also talking of another opportunity of saying that they're looking for another option, all right? So that they just don't depend on Strait of Hormuz. I'm just trying to imagine, what if that's their stand?
You see, Victor, we appreciate what the Strait of Hormuz has done globally.
Yes.
And we also recognize that major trade as far as fuel and goods from west to east is concerned, pass through there. Now, where we have a conflict, and this has been witnessed, the effects have been witnessed within the African countries as far as the high fuel prices are concerned, is that now that is a question to be addressed. And I like the fact that it's among the agenda to be addressed between the nations at the summit, that there has to be ways to ease trade within countries around the world. And so whether the Strait of Hormuz is going to be opened should not really be a factor to be considered or looked at, or maybe make the leaders change their minds as far as opening a new route is concerned. They should make everything possible to ensure that trade globally flows, such that when world crisis, governance crisis comes about, states are not held at ransom at the expense of two nations fighting. You understand?
Yes.
So now, opening a new route they should actually seek to open new routes, not just one, new routes from the south, west, so that nations can have ways of dealing with crisis when two giants are fighting.
Which actually is one of the biggest discussions there. I want to take a quick break. If we come back, I'll still circle back and come to you. It's also important to know that the G7's countries include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States.
Yes.
So who are the invited partners? Invited partners. Invited partners include Global South leaders from Brazil, Egypt, India, Kenya, and South Korea were invited to participate. So I think it's just clear to maintain that Kenya is not a member of the G7. They are invited partners.
Yes.
So when you're an invited partner, you also have a voice. All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us.
Have I done something to get you in this mood?
No.
Do you want to talk about it?
No. Sikumbuki nikikuita.
So umeniita leo.
Na mbona umekuja? Ama umekujia pesa?
Ni baadaye.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind dinner. But when are you going to mature up and start noticing your own mistakes? When are you going to own your own wrongs? When are you going to start blaming yourself, woman? I do everything in this house. I feed you. I put food on the table. I buy houses we live in. I dress you, woman. Put money in your account. But what do you do in return? You blame me. You blame me.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tunaangazia ufugaji wa nyuki ili kupata asali iliyo bora.
Kilimo cha nyuki ni kilimo ambacho kiko na mapato mazuri. So kwa sababu mkulima anaweza pata mapato kutumia products kadhaa ambazo tunavuna kwa nyuki. Na pia ukilisha nyuki unatunza mazingira yako.
Ungana nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo.
And welcome back. Thank you so much for staying with us. Amolo Simba, advocate of the High Court and governance expert. Kevin Osido, executive director, and County Governors Watch is also OGW. Very important to mention, OGW. And Frank Nyamari, an advocate of the High Court. Asante sana, gentlemen, for staying with us. So I'll just come back to you, Frank. Now, the continent is here, but I've just mentioned some of the invited partners. Let me take that again. Director is also going to play that clip by President William Ruto. Invited partners include the Global South. We have Brazil, we have Egypt, we have India, Kenya, South Korea. All they were invited. But the main G7 members include Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and of course the United States. Look at these members. The kind of financial power, the economic power they have is enough to dictate how things can be.
Yes.
More so, France hosting it and United States attending. You get it? That sends a very big signal.
Yes.
What if President Trump said he's not going to attend? And you have Ukraine and Russia war on that other side?
Yes. We know the theatrics President Trump sometimes plays as far as
he would pull.
He might pull anything.
Yeah.
But you see, for a summit that is focused on addressing global issues, such as trade, the growing tensions as far as governance is concerned, trade, the rise of technology. My colleague has mentioned about artificial intelligence. For a summit that is actually focused on addressing global issues, a nation excusing themselves from attending should not be an issue.
Yes.
They should just proceed and have the issues addressed and come up with the resolutions that are geared towards addressing the issues that are on the table. Now, Kenya is an invited partner. That is an opportunity that Kenya has been given, and also even the continent, to be able to address or rather speak about the issues that are affecting the continent at large. Now, look at the countries or the states that have been invited as partners to attend the summit. And look at the challenges probably they are all facing across. These are challenges that not only cut across the invited states, but they also cut across any developing state.
Yes.
Globally.
Yes.
things to do with trade, things to do with look at the kind of intimidation that, you know, economic intimidation that the United States will bring on the table if they were to, for example, they cut out what is called the USAID. They refused that. They said that they are no longer going to fund those activities. We can now see the impact that has had as far as things like HIV and AIDS drugs are concerned. So the issues that these G7 states are addressing are issues that cut across globally. But then a summit that is now focused on addressing those issues, they should just focus and address them. When we have a country like Kenya representing Africa, then we expect real issues to be addressed by our president. And I like that he has, even before being invited to this summit, taken a stand and addressed himself as far as those issues are concerned.
So he's a special envoy, so to speak.
Yes.
Special envoy. Before I come to you, Kevin and Simba, let's just take a listen to what President William Ruto said in France with regards to this. A quick one.
Energy transition, whether it is food security, whether it is labor mobility, or whether it is building a bigger market, Africa will have a say. Artificial intelligence, Africa is not going to be merely a consumer, that Africa is going to write the rules and is going to be co-creators on how artificial intelligence drives the next industrial and global revolution.
The head of state named the summit as consequential and significant meeting for Africa, building on the 2023 Africa Climate Summit.
Discuss and consolidate our position, ideas and suggestions on how climate change and the effects of it were affecting not just us, and Africa did not need to continue just being a victim, but a significant contributor to how a solution could be found.
President Ruto is expected to use the G7 summit platform to push for reforms for the global financial systems.
This is no longer going to be a relationship about dependency. It's going to be a relationship about sovereign equality. It is not going to be a relationship about aid, charity, assistance. It's going to be a relationship that we want about mutually beneficial partnerships.
The head of state has been invited by French President Emmanuel Macron, who is assuming the presidency of the Summit of the World's 7 Advanced Economies and Democracies, to participate in the high-level meeting. Isufar reporting for Good Morning Kenya.
Very, very heavy words there, Kevin. Very heavy words. I mean, I actually was noting them down. I've run out of space. Talk about the global financial, you know, there's no dependency here. He's talked about the issue of sovereign equality. He's talked about the issue of AIDS. There's nothing like that. In other words, we are not begging. That's the key word. Hey, you also, we are coming here as equal partners. I think President William Ruto uses that word a lot. Equal partners. Go ahead.
Yeah, precisely, Victor. And that is why initially, when we began this discussion, I indicated that Africa has enormous blessings, enormous wealth. But when you look at the G7 countries, in addition to others, the benefits that they gain from Africa do not equally accrue to locals within Africa.
Yes.
And there are many countries, and I think we have sat here in the past and looked at how even conflicts, wars, reverberate around raw materials and natural resources that come from Africa to some of these countries, which really beg the question around sovereign wealth and sovereign equality, so that what the locals within these African countries or Africa should be benefiting should be put together, juxtaposed with the benefits that these countries also gain and benefit from, rather get from Africa. And that is why the president is being very clear around sovereign equality, because he is also aware that that Africans are complaining around the investments that some of these countries make in Africa that do not relate to the equal measure of what they get, particularly when it comes to raw materials and natural resources. Number two, the president is saying that we are coming in as mutual beneficial partners.
Yes.
That yes, you have what you're bringing to the table, but we are also not just coming in as beggars. We are not coming in to seek for aid.
Listen to us. There's something else on the table.
We are coming in to be able to present something. And that is why he's talking about, co-creators. Co-creators means that we are creating something together as a couple, as a people, as people who have mutual benefits. And I like the words that the president is using, because these are words that are not just said by any other person. He's a gentleman who is indicating that, yes, we also have the power, as I said, to be able to convene. Because co-creators mean that, yes, we have the right to say yes to your invitation, but we can as well say no. But we are saying yes because we have invited you to our country. For example, when we had the Africa Forward Summit, the Africa-France Summit that was hosted in Kenya, and we had the French president showing up. We had other African leaders coming forward. And so the president is using this kind of opportunity to indicate that Africa also has something to offer. And this thing that we have to offer really is something that not any of the African countries can do it alone. We are coming in as a bloc, we are coming in as a region, we are coming in as a continent of almost 1.4 billion plus. And that is why I like even the list of the invited partners. Because if you look at the histories of some of those countries, Victor, when the president talks about food security, look at Brazil and its strength in agriculture. So maybe they are coming in to be able to share. How are you making it? To be able to be one of the global producers of rice, for example. If you look at India and health, and locally we have talked about the former Prime Minister.
And actually I was going to come to the criteria that the G7 used to invite the other invited partners.
So there must be something that President William Ruto is saying, as all these other countries that you have invited bring something to the table, you go to South Korea and its security and economic power. The innovation, technological advancement in South Korea. Look at the number of phones that those guys produce in a day. Young people, the Gen Zs in South Korea are coming up with extreme innovations around technology. So the G7 is saying, we are inviting you to bring something, contribute something to the table, and it doesn't have to be financial resource. Give us ideas, give us innovation, show us how we can be able to jointly do it. And so, Victor, it is therefore critical that Africa stands tall. President William Ruto goes there to be able to also present a case on behalf of Africans. We'll look forward to seeing how other African leaders are taking up this. And of course, not to forget, as I finish, that even as the president is standing tall as a global leader, locally there could be issues. You talk about the protests, you talk about issues to do with governance debates. We are currently talking about the finance bill. You talk about issues of political tensions within different political parties. He is the president. You talk about his engagements with other countries like DRC, Congo, and the different groupings that are there. These are concerns that we should not let out of the table. But we are saying that when we talk about such conversations, a round table of influencers like the G7, then President William Ruto...
To the president, his body language, his demeanor, it reminds you of some of the summits that has been held in Nairobi, and the common stand that those heads of state had. This is just, President William Ruto, we are sending you, and this is our stand. Talk about the issue of climate change. It has been there for a very long time. Talk about the global financial respect that they're also looking at. The president talked about we are coming as co-creators. We are not coming as... this is us. Listen to us as well. What have you picked from him?
So I think that those are flowery words by the president.
What do you mean?
They're nice, in terms of they're nice and really look appealing. But I would be hesitant to pop champagne yet, because these are words we've had since independence. We had Kwame Nkrumah calling for Africa unity, about Africa being treated equally. And over the decades, over 5 decades later, we still have Africa having the short end of the stick.
And do you think this is deliberate?
I think that what is happening is that for us, unless Africa, we make deliberate steps to integrate, to make a common front,
we will not have a seat at the bargaining, a seat at the table. Because you look at it, some of these things, it's about what power you have. The reason whenever US speaks, we are able to, like, they're able to control them, to shape the world direction. You look at the economy and the economic, both the economic and military might. That's why even today, like, if US engages in war, it affects the entire world economy. If you are a minority shareholder, like today, if you are a minority shareholder at Safaricom, you get that you as an individual minority shareholder, you may not be able to shape you may not be able to shape much in terms of the direction of the company. But if you rally other minority shareholders together, you can be able to at least put a strong voice. So my point is that it is possible for, like, at this summit, Kenya putting, making strong statements at the summit and at whatever global stage, but unless there is clear, deliberate effort by Africa as a continent moving together, and that's why I still go back to the example of the EU. You look at, in the EU, you look at whether the regulation, how they regulate technology, if there are certain laws that are passed on regulation, it would be affecting the entire EU bloc. That's around 28 countries. So if EU, for example, say that technological companies have to comply with this, Facebook, Twitter, all those global giants would have no option but to comply with this. But then in Africa, you'd have Kenya having this position on this. Currently, let's say AI, we have our regulation, Uganda, their regulation, and we contribute little to the economy, to the global economy. So it does not give much incentive for us to even be able to leverage in terms of the other international, the multinational companies. So we need to, the key focus should be on the integration, even as we push for some of this agenda. Otherwise, it will be all talk.
Okay, I want us to come to something which is quite important. I mean, look at the Russia-Ukraine war. They also touched on it. And they also agreed to intensify its, sanctions on Russia, and actually to make sure that the shadow fleet and the energy that is coming out of that is also taken care of. But let's talk about that. Zelensky attended. President Donald Trump is also there. You look at the body language, Kevin, the body language and the declarations coming out of there. Open Strait of Hormuz, just before that, it was open now. I think perhaps, was it deliberate? Now that Trump was attending and Strait of Hormuz is opened, it's confusing.
Of course, Victor, it is expected that before these leaders meet, there's a lot of diplomatic negotiations.
The backroom negotiations.
Exactly. A lot of conversations, discussions around a long list of people to be sent, who is supposed to speak to who, how are we supposed to say our words, what does a handshake mean, what kind of suit are you to put on, what kind of color of attire are you supposed to put on, a lot of things that happen. So that when actions are taken before such a serious conversation, they are also sending certain messages. So you open the Strait of Hormuz, and then suddenly there are conversations that happen. I wouldn't be surprised if, again, after this particular conversation, other things happen, other actions are taken, because each of these partners have something not only to offer but also to benefit. And as this is happening, you have Ukraine, the conversations around Ukraine-Russia war happening, and so the discussions really are, I would call it, a full table. Maybe the time is limited. As Kenyans say, masani machache lakini mambo ni mengi sana. And so you have to also pick up your priorities. What is the most important thing that you want to say? Remember that even as these leaders are meeting, they also have ambassadors and high commissioners, people who over time are picking data, they are collecting intelligence, they know who is doing what, how are we supposed to intervene and engage. And so the kind of body language, for example, that we see with leaders such as President Trump, are things that are supposed to send certain messages. If he's happy about what you are doing, he'll give you a thumbs up. Every time we are seeing him, for example, with President William Ruto, doing a thumbs up. I've never seen President William Ruto locally here giving a thumbs up, but when he meets President Trump, as he's giving his thumbs up, which is not just because of the president of Kenya. He's been doing this all the way from Magma, Make
But the thumbs up
America.
has been Donald Trump's signature.
That's what I'm saying. That he's been doing this over from the Magma discussions, Make America Great Again, during his campaigns and all that. So there is something that is sending. When he, for example, takes a photo with you smiling, there is something that is communicating. When he is frowning, he is communicating something which of course might not be dealt with at the level of the G7 discussions. It has to be picked up again with their diplomatic leaders and officials and move it further. But the most important thing is for us as Africa. What do all these conversations mean? So when you talk about oil and gas and the discussions around fuel, fact of the matter again, Victor, is that Kenyans, I keep talking about Kenyans, but Africans are the ones who are facing the brunt of all these issues. What African leaders, in my view, need to think about is how to have regional deposits of oil. How to go about it is a discussion for another day. But must we be looking up to certain regions, certain leaders? Yet we have, for example, the Nigerian Dangote, who has very good innovations. And I remember even President William Ruto talking about him in one of the panel conversations that he has had about this discussion. So what do those kind of efforts that local African leaders are making and taking mean to us, particularly when we go to this kind of table? So that when we talk about what are you bringing to the table, President William Ruto, on behalf of all the other African leaders, should be saying, we have regional deposits. We have things that we can be able to do. In my country, at a place called Lake Turkana, we discovered oil more than 13, 14 years ago. This is a deposit that is lying there. Is it something that we can be able to mint? Is there a value that it can be able to add if it can be processed and used as fuel? What does that mean? So that we also benefit, therefore, from this kind of discussions. I would be so happy when President William Ruto, for example, comes back and says, I went there, I represented Africa, but as a Kenyan president, the oil in Turkana, the deposits that are there mean 1, 2, 3 to us. The kind of tanks that we have in Mombasa, honestly, the Kenya pipeline should be something that presents a big discussion, Victor, when we talk about products that byproducts or inputs towards an economic development, because energy really is something that no country can be able to develop or move forward without.
We have a few minutes. But the question I have to all of you, as you are closing remarks, do you think whoever is concerned, I don't know, would be so happy to see that the Strait of Hormuz is other countries get an option?
Yes, and I
don't know who would be happy. I don't know who would be not willing to let Strait of Hormuz go. I don't know.
Yes, Victor, we appreciate the role that the Strait of Hormuz plays as far as global economics is concerned.
Yes.
But where there is conflict, and I like the fact that conflict is part of the agendas to be discussed on that table. But where there is conflict and that Strait of Hormuz is closed for one reason or the other,
who will suffer more?
We all agree that Africa will suffer more. Not even the West, not even the East, not even the Africa is the one that receives the most adverse challenges.
Who is the lead guitarist here when it comes to Strait of Hormuz?
So you see, Iran and the United States of America have taken a very hard stance that has affected everything globally. So when we are looking at the Strait of Hormuz in terms of those two nations, we need to come up with a solution.
Great.
We need to come up with a solution. That in the event that the US is not able to agree with Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz is basically bordering Iran, what other alternative does the world has as far as trade is concerned? That is the question that needs to be dealt with at the G7 summit or even any other summit that presents such a question. The question is, the thing is, there is need for the world to look at the Strait of Hormuz differently.
And depend on it less.
And depend on it less. So that they create new routes, probably from the west and from the south, such that when there is an issue at the Strait of Hormuz, the other routes can be.
I was waiting for you to say that we should have an oil deposit, maybe depot in Changamwe.
I was getting there. I was getting there.
Okay.
And I was actually I was going back to what the president said, that Africa is rich and we cannot come to the table as beggars.
Okay.
We have now to come to the table as equal partners and put in place necessary infrastructure to be able to deal with our problems as a continent.
All right.
Yes.
Amolo,
yeah.
The lead guitarists. Who is the lead guitarist? Are they 1, 2 people?
Okay, so if you look at it regarding from Strait of Hormuz, it's the control by Iran,
right.
And that gives them the greatest leverage in terms of any conflict. If I were them, I would also still do the same, like in terms of control, because at the end of the day, if they didn't have that control of whereby they can be able to have an impact on the global economy, they would not have leverage in negotiations. So yeah, it makes sense. Maybe what we need to, and the fact that even if you look at other routes, even if the shipping lines go through other routes are longer, making the transportation costs higher, which will translate to the supply. Like so, all this thing about supply and demand. So it will. The cost will go higher. Yeah, because I think around 20% of the 20% of like the global oil supply pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So once you close it, now you have 20% less, and with that, automatically due to the supply and demand, loads of supply and demand, you have the prices going higher. Maybe from African perspective, what we need to do is looking at protecting ourselves from global shock, because such like things will always happen. In the next a few years from now, there'll definitely be also something happening, something affecting the global chain. If we are able to look at promoting intra-African trade, like we have Nigeria or producing oil, so Sudan producing oil, how can we look at it in terms of whether instead of over-reliance on exports from outside Africa, if we have, we can be able to, and that it means developing in terms of the supply chain, whether the transport infrastructure, so that we can be able to promote more intra-African trade rather than over-reliance on outside countries, so that even in the instance where there are those shocks, global shocks will always be there, we reduce the impact on African countries.
Okay. Kevin, 30 seconds. I think we're time up. So 30 seconds. What next? Also responding to that in 30 seconds, kindly.
Yeah, what next is what's up for Africa from the G7 discussion. Why is the president there? What does that mean to us as locals and indeed even as a continent? I am hoping that these discussions will then be trickled down to other African leaders. Let the AU convene a special conversation table, and so that we don't wait for the annual calendar of the Africa Union. Look at the low-lying fruits that Africa has to be able to even domesticate as independent countries. And I believe that way the locals will be able to see value, Victor, in some of these discussions. Otherwise, it will just be too much talk, very little or no action.
Thank you. I mean, you know, we've talked so well. Actually, at some point I thought that we're in France. But when you come back, should we change our behavior, our demeanor, how we talk? Because it's just about to go down. Weekend is approaching, and you know what happens during weekends in this country. Okay. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think we have to wrap it up there. The partnership, the statement that came out there, they deliberated on international partnership. They talked about health interventions. India is a very big, it's actually big when it comes to healthcare. They talked about security and geopolitics, as well as transactional crime, how to collaboratively agree on targeting migrant smuggling. I think that's why US have been so much keen on some of the players going to the US for the World Cup. They have been so keen on that. All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to the show. That's where we wrap it up. And we hope that things are going to change. Amolo Simba, an advocate of the High Court and governance expert, thank you so much for coming. Kevin Osido, OGW, Executive Director of the County Governor's Watch, and Frank Nyamari, an advocate of the High Court. 3 wise men. They saw the star in the morning. My name is Victor Lo. Good morning. Have a good day.
Have I done something to get you in this mood?
No.
Do you want to talk about it?
No.
Sikumbuke nikikuita.
So umeniita leo.
Na mbona umekuja? Ama umekujia pesa yako?
Hiyo ni baadaye.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind, Tina. But when are you going to mature up and start noticing your own mistakes? When are you going to own your own wrongs? When are you going to start blaming yourself, woman? I do everything in this house. I feed you. I put food on the table. I buy houses we live in. I dress you, woman. Put money in your account. But what do you do in return? You blame me. You blame me.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tunaangazia ufugaji wa nyuki ili kupata asali iliyo bora.
Kilimo cha nyuki ni kilimo ambacho kiko na mapato mazuri. So kwa sababu mkulima anaweza pata mapato kutumia products kadhaa ambazo tunavuna kwa nyuki. Na pia ukilisha nyuki unatunza mazingira yako.
Ungana nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo.
Sasa inaweza sema wheelchair ndio miguu yangu. Juu sasa ukichukua hii wheelchair uniacha hapo utanipata hapo.
Disability only becomes tragedy when a society fails to provide what we need to lead our lives.
All of us here, whether person with disability or without, we have a huge role to play.
And because of this, we must align policies to integrate with systems such as schools and churches, ensuring that everyone's unique abilities are celebrated.
Watu walemavu wako na extra ability. Ours is only to identify the ability that is not limited by our challenges.
Join us this Saturday at 4 p.m. only on KBC and get more insights on what we have in store for you. I'll see you then.
Hello? Niko hii area ya Big Mama. Big Mama?
Najua. Nilikuwa nishapoteza matumaini kabisa.
Adui mkubwa wa maisha ni mtu kuanza kujifananisha na vitu kama hivyo. Kwanza huyu kama urafiki naye itabidi uishe kabisa.
Sindi nakaluha. Mufunjire munzu ya harula katatitita.
Wana Skola.
Agnes.
Ishindo katika jina la Yesu.
Wewe unajua kama kweli?
Hizi story nasikia na wewe. I kinda like your friend but.
Ai Lili, uko sure ni kinda?
Mimi na yeye kuna mahali tunaenda.
Kiwa sote tutakimbilia kwa pombe. Nani atamsaidia mwenzake?
Huyo dereva alikuwa na yeye, si wa huku.
Takujue moving forward. Hatuna ubaya.
Hatuna ubaya na wewe ndio ulikuwa unataka kuniua.
All right, you are right in time for our next conversation, this being Women at the Forefront. Our topic of conversation today is on peace and security in Africa, and we're specifically having a look on women's participation in peace processes. How does that look like, and where do we begin, and where are we so far? What better way to do it other than to have this conversation with the AU Special Envoy for Women, Peace and Security, Her Excellency Ambassador Liberata Mulamula. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. And thank you, Vivian.
It's a pleasure to have you here this morning.
Thank you.
Let's get talking about this. You know, first of all, maybe we can just set the pace by first understanding your mandate, or the mandate of the office that you hold.
Yeah, thank you. Let me say I'm so happy to be here this morning in this morning program. I am as you said, I'm the Special Envoy of the African Union chairpersons on women, peace and security. This office was established way back in 2014.
Yeah.
And I must say also it took the courage of a woman and the first woman chairperson of the African Union, Madam Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. She because we have the African Union Peace and Security Architecture. But then she realized there was a gap.
Yeah.
There was a missing link. That there was no women participation or recognizing the role of women in implementing the African Union Peace and Security Architecture. So that's when she came up and said, we need to have an office dedicated to the women, peace and security, and in advancing the full and meaningful participation of women in the all Africa Union Peace and Security Architecture. So I'm the second, because my predecessor was holding in that office for almost 8 years, 10 years. So I assumed my role a year ago, and this why I'm also happy that I'm here as I'm celebrating 1 year since my appointment
in office.
And I also wanted, of course, to thank the AU chairperson, Ambassador Mahmoud Yusuf, who had showed confidence in me to hold this office. So let me also say that the mandate of this office is specifically to follow full implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda to support the African member states in implementing their national action plans. We'll come to that to explain, because every member state has an action plan, not all of them, but they have an action plan in implementing the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. But also our role is to promote women's leadership in peace processes across the continent.
Yeah, and maybe just, you know, from that, what does it look like in practical terms? You know, how does that look like?
Yeah, in practical terms and in short,
the
role of my office is to bridge the gap between the policy commitments that have been made at the continental level and at the national level to ensure that the commitments made under various frameworks, including the famous Maputo Protocol on women's rights, the most comprehensive legal instrument, but also in following up the Agenda 2063 of the Africa we want, because that recognized the important role of women and youth, and of course the citizens of Africa in determining the destiny of our continent. So we position ourselves in those key policy frameworks and legal instruments, but also the mandate of my office is anchored within the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 that was adopted in 2000. We have been celebrating 25 years of that important resolution because it was the first of its kind that recognized the importance of participation of women in all peace processes. It recognized the need for protection, recognized the need for prevention, but also recognized the important role of women in relief and recovery, in short, in peace building processes. So in short, in practical ways, my office is anchored around these normative legal frameworks and of course the important UN Security Council Resolution 1325.
All right, very well put. Now I want us to understand the current situation. You know, from where you stand, what is the current situation of women in peace and security, specifically in the continent?
Yeah, I must say, in fact, the situation we are in the continent has underscored the urgency of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, because we have witnessed the increased, of course, conflicts, the complexity of the situations, of the conflict situations around the continent. We have also witnessed the emerging threats to peace and security, where women, of course, are victims, but at the same time, they are playing, have been playing, and they are playing an important role to keep, to hold the community, keep the communities together, but also intervene in reconciliation, but also in trying to mediate through the disputes, but also being peace builders. So I'm saying what we are witnessing today has underscored the importance of having women participate in the peace processes at the community level. Because we know that without the women participating, and this is what led to pushing this agenda, you cannot have sustainable peace and security at the exclusion of almost half of the population. And then say you'll have sustainable peace and security. So in the situation we are facing today, it has even underlined the importance of including women in resolving the problems we are facing in the continent.
And I'll also have to point out that, you know, there's something that still remain a concern. Specifically, if I can also just speak for Kenya, matters femicide, matters gender-based violence. This has been a conversation we've been having over and over. I think from especially the year 2022, we've been having this conversation on femicide, and the numbers still keep rising. So it's a major concern. And I believe generally, even across the region, matters gender-based violence is still a concern. So maybe where are the gaps on that specifically, and what more should we do? Because I feel like we talk about this, we keep talking about it, but unfortunately, we don't see the changes.
Yeah, in fact, you have raised an important question, because we talk about it. Who is talking about it? Because, again, the most affected are the women. But who listens to them? Because that is also the role of my office, to bring the voices and the living realities and experience of these women in the decision-making process, in the debate, in the old conversation. They are not there. Those most affected. We always purport to speak for them. And of course, I said, if at the elitist level, between me and you, Vivian, we talk about it. But then how does that impact the women on the ground? This is the major challenge. And this is where also my office, the Office of the Special Envoy, is trying to be that bridge between what is committed at the political level, at concerted levels, and bring it at the grassroots level, at the community level. So this is, we would be talking, of course we are here in the studio, we are talking about it, we all know. I always say, we know the what, we know the why, we know when it has happened, but we really seriously to address the how. Because I have seen, we have engaged at all levels. We have engaged also the religious leaders who have a faith-based organization. They have many followers. So we want them to speak out against these vices, against the gender-based violence, conflict-related violence. We don't hear them talking much about it. So this is why I said it takes all of us to ensure that we put an end some of these harmful practices and the femicide you have mentioned.
And you know, just from that, it's clear that one of the gaps we have is participation, and participation from the grassroots levels. Maybe what are some other gaps that you can point out that maybe we should work on filling in?
We have, because the most, maybe the gaps, of course, is what you have mentioned. The social barriers, the patriarchal barriers. But where we are seeing the gaps in terms of implementation, it is about, of course, translating those commitments into action, into practice. we have seen the gaps in terms of financing. We say we should put the money where our mouth is. You have member states adopting national action plans. As I'm speaking, we have about almost 40 countries have adopted national action plans. But then they are least resourced in terms of implementation. So that is where the gap also, even including our partners, just to recognize that we have very good blueprint, these action plans, but they are not resourced. But 3, we have the gap in terms of inclusiveness. Because we purport that we have, and you always say, we credit ourselves of having this good policy documents. But then who is who is involved, who is included, from the planning itself to the implementation. So this is where we see a gap that usually, if they bring in the communities, maybe the women, the youth, as an add-on, as an afterthought, they have to be involved from the very beginning. If it is negotiations, they have to be part and parcel of the negotiations. They have, so that gap between what has been agreed at the table and implementation is filled with inclusiveness at the very beginning, at the planning stage. But most important, as they say, the elephant in the room is financing. And to see this as a priority. Yes, because sometimes, I'm sorry, at the national level, we see that most of these issues we are talking about, whether it's gender violence, whether it's women, peace and security, are always relegated to the ministries of gender that are least resourced. So until we put money where it is needed, until these are seen as priorities, then we'll continue to see the gap between policy commitments and implementation.
Would you say we have enough policies and good policies in place, you know, just to be able to curb this?
Yes, we have enough. I must say this at the Africa level, our African Union level. I think it's the only institution, regional institution, continental institution, that has all what we need in terms of, as I said, policy commitment, in terms of normative frames, in terms of legal instrument binding. And recently, African Union adopted the first ever convention on ending violence against women and girls. This was adopted last year in February 2025. But then to have this convention come into force, it requires a minimum of 50 countries to ratify it. Because when you talk of ratification, to make it part and parcel of their national laws, their national legislation. But as I'm speaking, out of 55 African Union member states, only 9 have signed.
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. We have the instrument, but then when it comes to practical,
the implementation
and the political will, this is where also the political will, that's where also the gap is. So my office, and together with our sister departments, we are trying to push. Because our role of my office is mostly on advocacy for implementation of what has been committed. So we are also pushing through, and we would like also to use this opportunity to help us advocate for the implementation of those commitments made, including this important convention on ending violence against women and girls.
I hear you on that. Now, I know we've mentioned the gaps that are still there, the challenges that we are facing as a continent at the moment, but also I'm sure there has been progress. Can we touch on the progress that we've made this far?
Yes, that's why I really want, I'm glad you brought it, because we always talk of challenges or problems, but it's also progress. There's a positive side of what has been achieved. So far, I must say, of course, I mentioned that the member states almost 40 of them, have committed themselves to advance this important agenda of women, peace and security by adopting their national action plans. And my office is following up to make sure that these are really implemented, but also building their capacity through the training programs, and to ensure, because member states are required to report on the implementation of their national action plans. And as I'm speaking, more member countries are reporting, because we have what we call this important tool called the Continental Result Framework, which has performance indicators, which has also shows the gaps, what has been done, what needs to be done. So when they report, then my office is able to synthesize what the countries have achieved, the scorecards. You know, the scorecards are various columns. You have the green, the yellow, the red. The red mark are getting less and less because really countries are really recognizing the important role of the women in implementing their programs. But also we have seen a increasing number of women in peacekeeping forces. I'm speaking like in Tanzania. I think they are leading in terms of the number of women that are participating in peacekeeping operations, including of course countries like Rwanda, Burundi. So that is also was unheard of. And they are both in the military and the civilian component of the peacekeeping forces. And then we have also seen many women-led organizations for peace building at the community level. There are various initiatives. Through my office, we have been visiting, through the solidarity missions, these conflict-affected countries, to engage women, to engage the national authorities, to engage partners. What we have here realized, Vivian, women are so organized. They are ready to push the peace agenda. But then, unfortunately, of course, they are left out. They are not visible, but they are doing a lot. So this is also one of the positive elements. They are not crying, they are not whining that we are victims, but they have decided to take responsibility to ensure that the communities are holding, to ensure that the children are going to school. You see women, because being entrepreneurs, innovators, peace builders. If you ask any woman, even in the conflict-affected countries, the little they are doing in the marketplaces, they would say, I'm doing this to ensure that my children go to school, to ensure that our communities stabilize, to ensure that we hold together our families. So this is one of the progress we have seen, that are women assuming responsibilities rather than just whining as victims. So this is one of the progress I wanted to share with you. We have seen also inclusion of the women leaders in the peace processes. I'm here in Nairobi. I think this is in 1 month, it's been almost 3 times. This is in engaging the women leaders in the peace processes, especially in the DRC. We have the former presidents, because through the initiatives of the South African community, SADC, and now African Union led, they formed a panel of facilitators. At first, they were men only. The criteria that they have to be former presidents or former heads of state or vice president. Then through my office, and of course sister departments, we pushed, we said if the criteria is former heads of state, we have the women former heads of state, including the former president of Ethiopia, Her Excellency, Madam Sahle-Work Zewde. We have the former president of the Central African Republic, who held the office in that difficult period of transition as the president. I said, we have them. We have the former vice president of Uganda. We have the presidents. I said, if that's the criteria, then you have to include. They have included them. So you have the team of facilitators 5 of them,
okay.
Including President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, the former President of Botswana, the former President of Nigeria, and these women. So we have seen progress.
Yeah.
It is the first time that you have these women leaders sitting together with their colleagues, former heads of state, to find the solution to the DRC problem.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's clearly progress at the end of the day.
Yes, there is really. And this, of course, I'm saying this, I also want to thank you for this opportunity. So that people didn't know the progress we are making, despite the challenges, but there have been progress. So we have made some progress in policy, in advocacy, but now we need to move faster. We need agents of implementation, of course, better resourced and their accountability.
Yeah, I want to get back to the national action plans that 40 countries have already, adopted it, right?
Yes.
What makes it effective?
The first and foremost, the adoption of these national action plans demonstrates the political commitment to advance this important women, peace and security agenda at the national level.
Yeah.
And what is also unique is that there is no cut and paste in terms of these national action plans. They are tailored, developed according to the existing circumstances. Because if you take, for example, the national action plan by Tanzania and the national action plans by, say, DRC, they cannot be the same.
Of course.
So they have been tailored to your fit. So, and also to realize that you don't need the national action plan on women, peace and security where there is no war. Because at first, I remember in Tanzania, I was part of one of, they would say, but we don't have no war, we are at peace, why do we need this? But then, later they had to understand that peace does not necessarily mean absence of war. There are many components of peace. For example, we spoke about this sexual gender-based violence.
Yeah.
It happens even in times of peace. We have the women who are suffering in prisons, just for minor feed. So those are the issues.
I'll ask you to hold that thought for a moment. We take a short commercial break and then we'll be back to continue with this conversation. Don't go too far.
The Salaries and Remuneration Commission, in collaboration with stakeholders, will host the National Productivity and Performance Conference to be held from 17 to 19 June 2026 at the Kenya School of Government in Nairobi under the theme Productivity for Fiscal Sustainability and Efficient Service Delivery. The conference will set the direction for a future where Kenya's public service is productive, efficient, and fiscally sustainable.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now I'll get back to, back to you, Ambassador. Before we took that break, you were talking about some of the components of peace. When we talk about peace, sometimes people assume you need to be at war to be able to say that this country is not peaceful, but there's more to that.
Exactly.
If you can just continue with
Yes. Yeah, in fact, this is why I said what we like is to see that national action plans are tailored in the local context. They identify, of course, the actions to be taken, the responsible institutions, timelines, and the expected results. We have also seen that the emerging National Action Plan take into account the emerging new threats of security, peace and security. For example, the climate change, which has also become a source of conflict in terms of course, land issues, but also scarcity of water, where women especially are exposed to very unsafe, they would walk miles, but also communities fighting over this scarce resource. So this has also been included in the national action plans. But also, we have seen the new national action plans, also they have taken into account the new forms of violence, the technology facilitated violence, the
now.
digital, now online. So this is what was never thought of before, but now it has become an element that is considered in advancing the women, peace and security. How do we tackle these new emerging threats? So we have also seen that the good, I must say, a good national plan brings together the government, the civil society. Because in the past, if we have the government, because these are national action plans, are governments, but they will not include civil society. But now they have seen the important role of the civil society organizations that are more community-based and grassroots-based, but also brings together all the important institutions, development partners. In the past, it was like it is women business. But I've seen the new national action plans are multi-sectoral. For example, again, because I come from Tanzania, I give live examples from Tanzania. The national action plan that was adopted last year, it was led or launched by the leadership of the Defense Ministry. It was launched at the Institute of Peacekeeping, for example. So you can see that it's not only about women issues, but it is the national priority issue that cuts across, that's mainstreamed. So this, I said, it also creates a basis for accountability. Because if you don't have a plan, it's very difficult to know what is being implemented, who is responsible, what resources are needed, and what progress is being made. So this is why even my office puts a lot of emphasis on having this effective national action plan as a tool from commitment to action. Because without that, it will be talk over talk. We have to walk the talk.
We need to walk the talk. I agree with you on that.
And this national action plan are part of the tools to walk the talk. And they have shown that with these plans, it has kept the women peace security agenda alive and as one of the national priorities.
All right. Maybe how do we also get to involve men in this, and what role do they get to play?
Yes, actually, I'm glad you brought out that, because we say this women peace and security agenda is not about only women. Everyone has a role to play. Through my office, we had an initiative called Positive Masculinity in advancing the women peace and security agenda, identifying, we call them he for she champions, that have really at the highest level, at the community level, that we cannot go it alone and expect that this would be sustainable at the exclusion of men and boys. So my office, in advancing this agenda, and this is why even today, I'm accompanied by only men from my office. I have men and women, but the movers and shakers in my office, I call them constructive Gen Z. But these are men, are boys and men. And that's what makes this, energizes the agenda. Because otherwise we'll be playing in the stereotypes that these are women issues. And of course, when I was told Vivian will be hosting this, I said, I hope we are not, we're not contributing to the stereotype that these are women issues. But everyone has a role. As I said, whether it's men, whether it's religious leaders, but more important, the media. The media. Throughout my career,
Yeah.
I've always said the media are the key stakeholders. They are the partners, they are the voice. In Tanzania, we used to have a program, Sema Usikike.
Okay.
Who will hear me if it not through you? Because as I said, I've been here for meetings, but we are in closed doors, we are in the four walls. No one hears what we have been speaking about. And we have been speaking about very important issues, especially under this agenda of women, peace and security, in advancing the peace processes in DRC and the other conflict-affected countries.
Yeah.
So I said, everyone has a role to play in this, to be able to achieve this. And as the UN Women says, the motto and the commitment is leaving no one behind, including men and boys.
We leave no one behind.
No one behind, yes.
All right, as we almost come to a conclusion of this conversation, what would success look like in all of this? You know, when it comes to women, peace and security in Africa, what does that success look like? Paint that picture for us.
Yes, in fact, the success, you'll see it from the challenges and the gaps we have said. Once, the success will be seen once we see women are taken as key actors in the peace processes. And as we say, once we see the women, not in terms, symbolic, because we have always numbers, you know, we have included women, we have 2 women, so to move from being a statistic, but being a normal practice, that wherever there are issues, fundamental issues that affect peace and security, that affect livelihoods, that affect the safety of communities, women are there. They are not there as a favor or just an option, but as an essential players and actors in this. This is where success would be measured. And as others say, to be at the table and not on the menu. That would be success. But 2 would mean that women and girls, of course, in the whole community, whether boys, they are protected against gender-based violence.
Yeah.
But also to measure how women are involved in terms of participation and leadership in all these processes. It doesn't have to be always men. I know, of course, men, they create the mess. But then we come in to clear the mess. But we can lead these processes. Where I see women are in leadership in these processes, this is where we see we have made it. Because like my office, because it's women, peace and security, it's being led by the women. But if I see that we are working together with men, that is a success in one day. But also, finally, we spoke about the national action plans. The success would be, 1, that we have them full financed, fully implemented, and monitored. And most importantly, let me say success would mean that women in conflict-affected communities can live in safety, in dignity, and participate in decision-making and contribute fully in building peace.
Yeah.
Because we say peace in Africa will not be sustainable if it's not inclusive. And peace is stronger and sustainable when women lead. It's why we said when women lead, peace reigns. So this is where I will say in my lifetime that we will stop struggling and pushing. That it just, because no one ever counts how many men are there.
Yeah.
So I want to come to a position where it becomes normal. But it's not about the numbers or counting every time if we have a woman or women at the table. This is, I hope, we'll be able to see it in our lifetime as we saw the first woman president Tanzania. I never thought I would live to see the first woman president, Madam Samia Suluhu Hassan in Tanzania.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your final remarks.
Yes. Let me have key messages. First of all, as I said, of course, we need political will in this. So my message to the leaders that women participation is not optional. It's essential for sustainable peace, security and development, and the future of Africa, or the future of peace in Africa, must be inclusive. When women participate, as I said, peace is stronger. When women are protected, communities are safer. When women lead, societies benefit. And to the listeners today, let me say, women, peace and security is not only about women. It is about the kind of societies we need to build. And within the agenda of Africa 2063, the Africa we want, this agenda is about building societies that are peaceful, that are just, inclusive, and dignified for all. So my message is, women are not only victims of conflict, and this is where the media, I really want you to change the narrative. Not always to project women as victims of conflicts. We want to be projected as leaders, as negotiators, as mediators, as protectors, and innovators, and peace builders.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
and
you
that is where we get to end this conversation. It was a pleasure having you grace our segment this morning. This is where we end this conversation. That was the African Union Special Envoy for Women, Peace and Security, Her Excellency Ambassador Mula. Don't go too far. We're taking a break, but we'll be back and we'll be having a conversation on more or less the same thing, but now on grassroots, at grassroots levels. We'll be looking at safe spaces and stronger communities. Stay with us.
Hello? Niko hii area ya Big Mama. Big Mama?
Najua. Nilikuwa nishapoteza matumaini kabisa.
Adui mkubwa wa maisha ni mtu kuanza kujifananisha na vitu kama hivyo. Kwanza huyu kama urafiki naye itabidi uishe kabisa.
Sendi nakaluha. Mufunjire munzu ya harula katatitita.
Wana skola.
Agnes.
Ishindo katika jina la Yesu.
Wewe unajua kama kweli?
Hizi story nasikia na wewe. I kinda like your friend, but...
Ai Lili, uko sure ni kinda?
Mimi na yeye kuna mahali tunaenda.
Kiwa sote tutakimbilia kwa pombe. Nani atamsaidia mwenzake?
Niyo dereva alikuwa na yeye, si wa huku.
Takujue moving forward, hatuna ubaya.
Hatuna ubaya na wewe ndio ulikuwa unataka kuniua.
What is this?
A fairyland. Mirror village.
You can read that?
One script.
Where'd you get that?
From my parents.
Wow.
If you want to ask about the Bodhi tree, forget it. That information's not for sale.
Wiki hii kwenye Mkulima tunaangazia ufugaji wa nyuki ili kupata asali iliyo bora.
Kilimo cha nyuki ni kilimo ambacho kiko na mapato mazuri. So kwa sababu mkulima anaweza pata mapato kutumia products kadhaa ambazo tunavuna kwa nyuki. Na pia ukilisha nyuki unatunza mazingira yako.
Ungana nasi Jumamosi saa 10:30 hapa KBC Channel 1 kwa mseto kamili wa kilimo.
focus and your mind. This is a king, a queen, a bishop, and a knight.
In today's story, we find a group of school-going children, and something is happening to one of them. The teacher has no idea.
Lone Rex really right. Rollis Ron Rex really right.
Today I'm going to show you how to make pizza rolls.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's have this conversation on safe spaces and stronger communities. And we just get to have a deep dive into the actionable solutions that can be put in place in order to ensure that we are having communities that are safe for all of us to exist in. And I have with me guests in studio to help us talk about this. I have a gender-based violence activist and a social worker. That is Hawa Asania Umar. Welcome to the program, Hawa.
Thank you.
And then we also have Nancy Odero. Nancy Odero is a lecturer and an author as well. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's get to first just get into this. When we are looking at ensuring that we have communities that are safe for all of us to exist in, how does that look like? I can start with you, Hawa.
Okay, I think first of all what we should understand is about what is a safe space. A safe space, I think, according to my understanding, is a peaceful environment where people can feel they're physically, emotionally, and psychologically secure, where they can share ideas and they can be heard. Yeah. So, what is happening, I think, let me go to what is happening, particularly in the issue of gender-based violence.
Yes.
Okay, I'm a woman, and we are always like victims of all this because we are not safe in our societies due to one or two reasons. For example, let me say that we have what can I say? We have somebody like, we have men. And we go through a lot of, the ladies go through a lot of things based on how the community is. You get, for example, there's a community that it's not empowered on knowing their rights, like girls not going to schools because of A, B, C, and D. Maybe, for example, there's lack of school fees, there's lack of maybe parental care. So we go through a lot. So what I think is we need to be secured like girls, women in the society, because we believe that what a man can do, a woman can also do. And if we don't empower these ladies or these women to know things that they're supposed to do, to know as the particular people who are the key person of the society, you know, a woman is a home taker. And if you have bad home takers, automatically the home goes down. So what we're supposed to do is like we need to create a safe space whereby we can give them that empowerment so that they can know, even if I'm being approached or I'm being affected by such and such an an event, how can I handle it? Because we cannot say that you cannot survive without men. They are there. And we know how, also the men, they know we are also there. So what you're supposed to do is, how do we interact with these men? We should not cage a lady that much that even he sees that guy like this is an enemy. So this is where the problem, majorly the problem that is affecting us. You cage a girl that very much. You don't expose her a bit. And you don't talk to her. For these teenagers, they need to be empowered through these evidence-based interventions, like we have something called My Health, My Choice, how you can live, how you can take care of your health, and how you can deal with such situation. So I think one major thing that we are facing is a lack of empowerment. We need to empower these girls so that after empowering them, then what next? Because out of that empowerment, they'll know the risk that I'm attached to and how I can handle such risk. Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
All right. And now, you know, many cases, specifically of gender-based violence, go unreported. I'm sure you know this. You know, working in the, you know, having community engagements and all that. You know that, you know, some of these cases go unreported. Maybe where are we going wrong in terms of that? Why is it that many of them are unreported? You know, someone has been sexually assaulted, but probably it's even in the home, and now you have to protect the image of that home. So we don't get, you know, to report most of these cases. Maybe where are we going wrong on that? Nancy.
Thank you very much. Most of the time we go wrong when it comes to the implementation of what we have set as a community. We are talking about safe spaces where we want people to voice their issues and to give out information without them being discriminated, without being judged, and without feeling that sense of harassment. But then in this case, you realize that most communities do not allow such, and therefore it ends up in a situation where youth or the person, the victim in this case, cannot easily open up to the people in the authorities. And we are saying that in this case, we are supposed to give that safe environment where someone can easily say whatever they have gone through, and they are not being discriminated. They are heard. Their voices are heard. People in the authorities are able to ensure that the case is taken where it's supposed to. In most cases, we've heard that the case is pushed forward and someone just makes a conclusion. And the person making the conclusion is in a place where they are supposed to help. They are the first in contact to help. So in this case, we are saying that safe spaces are the first in this case. I'll pose a question. Why is it that when you're in a place or you go somewhere, you find it very easy to interact, to go about the group that you're in? And why is it that when you're elsewhere, you start thinking hard, you overdo, you overperform, it's very difficult to go about it? It's just because the space is not safe for you to say whatever you want to say. And the reason, back to your question, the reason we are finding it difficult is because the spaces have not been put safe for people to talk. Or even if it is safe, the authorities in place do not forward or do not handle the case as it's supposed to.
Do we even have these safe spaces, if I may begin there? And how do we create these spaces in our communities within ourselves?
Okay. We have safe spaces. I'll give a case of the communities that I work with, or even my students that I teach. I give the safe spaces for them to air, to tell me whatever is happening, to talk to me freely. And it starts with an individual. We cannot say we want to create safe spaces when ourselves as an individual, we do not want to allow it. So in most cases, it starts with us. And we're not just supposed to say it with the word of mouth. It is something that needs action. This is an actionable issue that you cannot just say with the word of mouth. So in most cases, we tell the people that we work with, the youth, we tell the communities that it is safe to come out and say whatever you want to say. And it is okay to express yourself in terms of whatever you're going through, and that way you'll get help.
All right.
Yeah.
So how are these safe spaces we're talking about? It's not about rooms. It's not about buildings. Elaborate.
It's not about rooms or building. It's about how you, the first person is supposed to be you. How do you create that good environment for somebody who can even come and tell you this is what is happening to me. So if you go to somebody and then you start being like you are very harsh, you just want to show that maybe I just want things to be done the way I want. You know that we're not creating any safe space. You need to be very friendly to that person. And when, for example, maybe you have a group of people you're talking to, you need to like create that space. The first impression can tell how somebody can come and see you. You know, if you go to like if you go for a place that you are in large capacities, then the first way they will start to address somebody sees, hey, with this person, I cannot really do what? I cannot really open up. So it starts by you, the person who is in charge of whatever for example, like we are an activist of gender-based violence. You need to create that space. You yourself start with it. And you give room for the person who is also affected to come and open up. Then there's another thing that I may add up to what Nancy said. Another problem is the community that we live in. You, maybe for example, have identified this is how I have been violated, and I go and report. Then the person, the perpetrator, maybe is a young, for example, is a young child from that community. And then what happens? The case is reported. They want it to be solved at the community level, which is okay, no problem. But what is the end term result or repercussion to that person who has been violated? It is really, really extreme, because if a case has been reported and it has not been handled and it has not been solved, when the perpetrator has not been charged like with whatever he or she did to that particular person, then how will he cut off this thing of gender-based violence? It cannot, because somebody will continue doing the same mistake, knowing that hata nikifanya hivyo it will it will still be concluded at the community level. So even the people, the grass person at the community level, for example, parents, if my child is abused, and somebody who abuses the child, I know this is my neighbor, for example, then I go, then somebody like me come and take in the case, and I say, let me go and report the case so that the child will get justice. Then you as the parent, how can you accept somebody who has assaulted your child to just go like that you want to sort it at family level, but you're forgetting about the child whose mental situation has been affected? Will never forget that thing. And it will create what impression to the others who are in that society. So this community itself is supposed to be a safe space, and this one should bring about like sensitization even to the parents. We have programs like Families Matters program. This is where parents are being taken through all these things, how you can handle a child as adolescents, if a child has been assaulted, if something has happened to that child, how can we go about it? So we also need to sense the parents on the ground and on handling matters issues with these children, the affected ones. They should also know that this child needs justice. Somebody cannot just come and tell you, nakupatia hata 70,000 so that we can handle this case at that matter. When you sell that child's dignity and you forget about the repercussion that it may lead to moral, the mental support of the child is not stable. So I think that is also the other thing.
Maybe where or when should we start these conversations? Because I feel like these are things we keep talking about. Like I mentioned even in the other interview we were having, we keep talking about these things. It's not the first time we're talking about this. You know, we keep talking about this. But where exactly do we make it practical? And by this, I'm looking at it in the sense of starting these conversations with the younger children. From the school levels, primary schools, we start having these conversations with both boys and girls. I think that's the best way for us to be able to bridge that gap when it comes to gender-based violence. Don't you think so, Nancy?
Yeah, that is very true. We are supposed to start it at a very young stage. And just like we say every day at the community level. Everything, once it has been started from the community, usually it will get up there. So we are supposed to work very closely with the people in the grassroots. And we are supposed to create these groups that we can be able to come together, speak and teach. I did a research on community engagement, and one of the conclusions was capacity building and continuous speaking and talking to these girls and boys creates results. That is what it means to keep on speaking and speaking to people every other time. It is not a one-time thing. Usually, when you want the brain to be streamlined in a certain direction, you keep on repeating the same information. So we have groups in the communities that we have school programs that we meet young girls and boys in school. We have community groups that we meet at even chief barazas. Such kind of places are very good for us to be able to pass the information and to tell them that if such a thing happens, then it means you have to take action. We also need to take people who are in such relevant institutions to teach them. Maybe some people do not really just know how to go about it. There are people who have grown to know that cases are solved within the community. You are violated, you go to your parent. You are violated, you go to your... They do not know that you can go to even, say, police. They do not know that that's a very serious case in the community that you can move to another stage. So people need to be made aware. Awareness creation is forever, and it's supposed to just keep on going. You're supposed to keep on going, and within the groups that we make, we have to ensure, just like we are saying, we have to ensure that it has that safe environment. Safe space is a safe environment where someone can easily express themselves. Yeah.
And you know, most times when we talk about gender-based violence, it is just assumed that it is for girls and women. But the boys are not also, you know, left behind on this, and it's unfortunate, you know, they're also victims of this. You know, let's not look at it like when you talk about gender-based violence, it's only the women who are being violated. Even the boys and men get violated as well. So back to that conversation of inclusion from the word go, and having everyone, you know, in this conversation. Not that when we go to schools, we only have women empowerment clubs whereby we're talking to the girls about how to protect themselves and this or that. How about we just have conversations where we have both the boys and the girls involved, and you just talk to them, you know, speak to them, teach them.
Yeah, that is why we've talked about what we call continuous sensitization to the community, because the community involves both the ladies and the gentlemen. We cannot handle one character and leave the other, because they also need to be part of it. So it's just continuous sensitization, teach them on the dangers, the negativities, the positivities of, like, if we cannot tell them that you cannot mingle, because that is part of what nature, it has to happen. But you need to tell them when you have to have limits when you're going, and whatever you're going to do, how will it affect you? For example, a young boy in form, let's say in Form 3, impregnates a girl in Form 1. That boy, they were doing it thinking that maybe it's something very simple, but they don't know the end repercussion. The boy becomes like let's say that the boy wants to take care of the girl who is pregnant. And then you want to be a father at a very young age. You don't know how to bring up a family. You're still in school. You don't have a stable income. So it affects even, you know, gender violence is not all about just what happens to you physically, even mentally. Your mental situation becomes tampered with. So it affects so many things that you cannot even sustain you as that boy. You say, now what has happened to me? So that's why we keep talking even to the boys. Whatever you are doing, first, before you do it, you need to know the bad and the good side of it. If the bad side overpowers the good side, then drop it off. Same to the girl. Whatever you are doing, how will it affect you? Because at some point, it doesn't only affect the the two whatever, the two children. It also affects the parent. A parent feels that I have put my effort to bring up this child. I thought I was taking good care of this child. I didn't know that whatever the child is doing outside is also another bad thing. So that's why even us as parents, still it goes there. The first thing is parents, you should be very close to your children. If a child does something, if it is wrong, try to tell that child this is wrong. And also, you should also give that child an opportunity to express themselves to you as a parent, because you are the first person at the ground. If for example, I have a boyfriend, I need to tell, and I'm hiding it, it doesn't help me. But if I am very close to my mother or to my father, I can go and tell them, this is what I have on table. How can you advise me about it? Automatically, the girl will be safe. She'll know that my mother will tell me ABC and or my father will tell me this. And whatever they'll say, if they create that rapport, good rapport, the child will never mess up. Because atasema, if, for example, my mother has given me the chance, let me go and do this. Whom am I hanging out with? What am I going to do? So even if I want to mess out, there's that guiltiness will come. What if I do this? Then I'll never have this freedom that I have right now. So let me just lead the right way. So parents are the one who should start to give that, to create a safe space between them and their children. Yes.
Yeah. Would you say that some of our cultural norms actually contribute to gender-based violence? How?
Partly and not partly. Yes. Because some culture, let me talk about, okay, I cannot mention the tribe, but there's some cultures, if a girl go and start dating a boy, it's not a big deal, as long as you've grown. As long as somebody say, my daughter is now fully grown, she can do whatever she wants. So they give them that leeway to go and do such things, which by the end of the day, who is the mostly affected? The person who allows this thing to happen. So some cultures, they really affect. And you cannot tell them not to leave your culture, but you just tell them what is good about this and what is bad about this. You cannot go and say, nataka e culture, you should stop it. No. You just continuous sensitization for them to understand. Even if culture is involved, but there is that end result, which is might be positive or negative. So they should have it on mind. That is why we talk about this thing, continuous sensitization, creating safe spaces for such things. So because we can never run from these things, they're there. Yes. So it's only know how to handle it. Yes.
Nancy, you have something to add on to that?
Yes, culture was made to shape a society. And with time, we realize that there are cultures that are good, very good, and there are some that are not good. And that's why we find ourselves demystifying some of the cultures at this point and era. And there are some that we still want to keep. And cultures like those that really put communities into the wrong side should be condemned. I don't think we are supposed to follow it at this point in time. There are some that we realize that cultures like the one the other day, it was all over girls of very young ages being allowed to get married to very old men. There's a lot those girls are going through. You haven't just seen what their mental health look like at that point. And they want to stay that way for the rest of their lives. That is a damaged human being. Back to the point of boys and girls. In this time again, I'll say that we need to talk to both. We are not basing our points, whatever we talk about, to only girls. We want to talk to both boys and girls. And that's why all the programs that we have, if it means communities, we talk to both. When you go to parents, we meet both parents. When you talk to young boys and girls, you talk to both. Recently, I published a book. It has both the gender. We're trying to say that boys or brothers or fathers in the house, your role, together with the women, girls, ladies and mothers, when we put both the two groups together, the outcome is very good. Whatever comes out from that place is massive, and it makes the community to go on well. It builds the safe space for a community.
Yeah. So there are cultures or some cultural norms that are still a reality right now that are a clear violation of the girl child. For example, when you talk about FGM, female genital mutilation, there are cultures that are still practicing as we speak. I'm sure you can agree with me. There are cultures that are still practicing to date. So maybe just how do we get to a point where we get to eradicate this completely? Because it's a violation and it has been outwardly put as a violation and it should not be happening, but it is still happening. So just how do we go about ensuring that even within our communities, despite some of these cultures that used to be there, like we're able to distinguish this as a violation and, you know?
Okay, according to me, I can say these cultures of doing FGM is not a good thing to a lady particularly. For example, if you do FGM to a lady, then maybe in future that lady gets married. You know, it like kills down the whatever the feeling. So it also affects the man's side, because it brings that man to a situation whereby maybe he thinks, I think this one is not working, let me go for another wife. It brings it makes things even worse, because when you circumcise a female, you really affect so many things, because it affects that particular girl's life in future. The girl might get married, but be rest assured, the husband will go to another person, because it kills down the human feeling that it's in the body of that girl. So I think we should also consider the fact that, okay, these things are cultures that we are doing, but the end, still about the end result, because the person who gets affected very much, it's the lady. And it also brings the issue of polygamous family, which is also very bad. If you have a polygamous family, it now goes vast, because even the children who are born in there is no peace, there is no safe space. Everything becomes chaotic. So such things also should be brushed off, because of the realities that will happen after whatever you've done to the child. Yes.
Okay. Now, I want us to look at practical, maybe programs that can be put in place in order for us to ensure that we are having communities that are safe spaces for all of us to exist in. What are practical programs that we can just have in place in the smallest capacities? How?
I think, what can I say? First of all, we should create, like, in communities we have the CBOs, they support the community. You have the OVCs and the vulnerables at the capacity level, at the community level. So the CBOs, you have the community healthcare workers. These are the people who need to be sensitized, because they're the people who get direct to the community and they get in touch with those particular persons at the community level. So they should be sensitized. Such program, even if they're dealing with the health care side, they should also be given extra trainings about such things, so that they'll keep on sensitizing the community, because you cannot be in that community for long, but the CHVs, they are from the ground. They can do that. Such programs.
Right, Nancy, on the same.
All right. There are so many programs that currently are running on the grassroots to ensure that we bring change. But then it calls for just the people from the community to embrace it. Most of the time we find ourselves doing a lot and we do not get the results because maybe the people have not embraced it. Let me get back to the question you asked just a little bit. How can such culture, the bad cultures in this case, be eliminated? In my thinking, I was saying, we have a generation that embraces it, the older group. And then we have the younger generations that if we ensure they go to school, We ensure that they get the right information. We ensure that we create awareness on the effect of that particular culture. With time, because we know change is a process, with time it will fade slowly by slowly. As the older generation moves, the younger generation comes with a different mindset. And we know life moves, yeah? So with time it will fade off. And now back to the programs. We can have, we can continue with whatever you have. These are programs that have been well researched. I just talked about a research that we did recently, that capacity building is a sure strategy to eliminating some mindsets and notions. That with the good curriculum, that every day you get to train, you get to tell them repeatedly, it will sink at some point. So programs to do with capacity building for communities, to demystify myths and misconceptions, to bring about good programs, to tell them which way, what is the way forward. Those programs are supposed to be there. So one is capacity building. Another one is just having a group, creating groups that you can meet regularly, to just teach them on how to first run with issues that are not according to our going well with them. You know very well you're supposed to go through this FGM. Is it possible that you report? You know the AGM stage is 9 to maybe 12. When you're about there, are you able to run for your life? Are you able to seek for safety? Are you able to go to someone and speak freely and tell them that I'm facing this and I'm seeing myself being the next in the chamber? So can you help? So with that, we will be able to have such programs where people speak freely, and we'll go about it. Yeah.
All right, as we almost come to a conclusion of the conversation, I want us to talk about this other challenge that we have been witnessing, and that is victim shaming. And we keep seeing it, you know, day in, day out on social media. There's always victim shaming. This happened to this person, then there's the question of what were they doing? Why were they there? And this is the victim, you know, probably they've lost their life, or they're in a critical condition or something of that sort. But when we talk about victim shaming, it brings about stigma, you know. So if we can just talk a bit about that, and maybe the best support for survivors, and how to avoid this shaming of victims at the end of the day. We can take that.
Okay, what I think, if somebody posts like in social media, such a thing has happened to this person, I think the first thing we should try to know why did it reach to that point, because it cannot reach a point that somebody cannot just decide, I want to go and do this, and without something, maybe there was an influence, something that made that person reach that situation. For example, if somebody takes like drug, then you end up being like, you're not sober, you can't do anything. So before we judge somebody, we should also look at the condition that made that person do this thing. And we should look to the contributing factor. Because somebody might go and take, like for example, I go and take bang. If I take bang, maybe I have my own stresses that has contributed to this. So after you take that thing, you're not sober, you can decide and do anything. Maybe you are not in your sober mind. So I think before we start victimizing somebody that this thing is wrong, we should know what was the contributing factor. And if we know the contributing factor, because you cannot just handle something without knowing how it started, we should know the contributing factor. Then you go and look for on a way on how you can talk to the person who is victimized. Because sometimes somebody might be in a very, very worse situation, in his or her down status in life. Now he feels that, now what do I do? oh, let me go and do this and post it in social media, thinking that maybe it's something that was fun, but not knowing that that thing might cause something that it might be not appealing to the eye of the person. So it brings about regrets. So I think even the social media thing, okay, anyway, we cannot control it, but before somebody judges somebody, don't victimize somebody before knowing what actually happened to that person.
Okay.
So I think we should also try to look on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is where we have to finish this conversation. Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you so much, Hawa, for joining us for this. And we also get to finalize on today's Good Morning Kenya and give way to the Parliament proceedings. So do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Goodbye.
Chaparro in front of him did a very good job. Semedo tries to break free. Free kick, which will do nicely for Cape Verde.
Yeah, Pedri summed up there, waiting for the ball to come to him. Cape Verde didn't let him settle, and all of a sudden he has to drag his man down, pick up a yellow card. He probably sums up his performance today, not being good enough from Pedri.